headphones. We've got two really brilliant speakers today on data. Seen them both before. This is going to be good. If you want to use Pigeonhole to ask questions, you can try and scan the code that's about to appear there, or it's pigeonhole.at, and we'll save some time at the end for questions. As you can see here, the interpreter is doing a brilliant job of
Spoke too soon.
You forgot the off. Okay. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you, Aid, and thank you everyone for coming today. My name's Rob Curtis. I'm the director and founder of Event Footprints. You may not have heard of us because we've only set the business up in March of this year. And the whole idea around Event Footprints is we're an event technology consultancy to help organisations engage, capture more data, integrate more data, and visualise the impact of your event programmes. I'm joined by Dax Callner from the EMMC, which is the Experiential Marketing Measurement Coalition.
Yes.
And we're going to talk a little bit about the 5 measurement fundamentals, tools to capture event data and visualising that change management piece. Just to introduce Dax, I came across the EMMC earlier this year. I'll hand over you to introduce it, but they do some very, very cool stuff.
Cool, thank you. So I'm not only with the EMMC, but that is why I'm here today. Dax Callner, I just spent 5 years as strategy director at the agency Smyle. I left 2 weeks ago, and I'm free, and I'm independent, and I'm loving it. A lot less stress, loving, loving, loving. But also I'm the president of this not-for-profit, which is the EMMC. Not selling anything, that's why it's a not-for-profit. If you are interested, there's a website, eventmeasurement.org. But we're going to use that as a basis for some of the discussion today around the event measurement fundamentals. The EMMC's sole goal as an industry association is to promote better measurement in our industry. And so anyone who's a member is aligned to that mission, and we have about 150 members in the US, UK, and elsewhere. And we are promoting that heavily. With some new stuff coming, which I'm really, really excited about, and you're going to get the tiniest sneak peek of today. Can you hear me okay? I sound like I'm going in and out. Okay, cool.
Good stuff. So, why is it important to measure the change of events? I think this is a very big, bold statement. If you think about why we organise events, they are a catalyst for change, right? So that might be if your organisation are running a sales and marketing event where you're bringing on your prospects and your clients, then ultimately that is to drive more business growth, new opportunities, more leads in that activation. If you're more sort of on the sort of employee engagement side and doing sort of internal events, the core sort of objective of those events is probably to communicate or for your attendees to learn something. But the fact of the matter is there's a load of great, amazing data that your attendees are giving up as part of your event program from the moment they register, on-site, through the applications, through the badging systems, etc., that is captured. But many organisations don't really know what to do with that data and how that can be used to visualise the impact of those event activations. And hopefully that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today and educate you on. And I think we've all been at events, and one of the fundamental elements of measurement as we know it today is very subjective. Our senior stakeholders say, well, I walked around, I saw a lot of people with smiles on their faces, etc. But actually utilising data gives you a real objective measurement, okay? But why measure? Why is it important? For you as organisers and event planners, what we want to show is actually a tool and a mechanism to help you protect your budgets, this whole concept of doing less with more. And actually, if you can prove this business impact of your events, hopefully for future programs and future events, it allows you to ask for more money for your CMO, your CFO, to do a few more interesting and creative things. And I think we're at a point now, and obviously we're at Event Tech Live, where there are so many brilliant technologies out there that help you can capture measure this impact of your event activations. And I always use this analogy that if you take an event like this, for example, this is an analog experience where we're all walking around on our feet. We're not looking at a screen too much. But actually, when you're utilising the right technologies in the right way, then you almost create this sort of digital mesh over this analog experience where you can capture all this great insight of what our attendees do, where they go, and how they feel. And it's about optimizing that experience to collect as much data as possible. So the one thing I will, one thing I want you to take away from this session is actually, when you're running these events, and your audience is captive in your brand and your event activation, think about how you want to capture all this data and insight and how your business might use it after the event. Because I think that survey data isn't, on its own, isn't enough anymore, okay? So I'm going to hand over to Dax. He's going to talk a little bit about these sort of five areas of fundamental.
I'm actually going to disagree slightly with something you just said.
Here we go.
Sorry, guys. I apologize. I actually don't think it's as much data as possible. It's the right data. And so one of the challenges in measurement, and I've been working in events for 25 years and have tried to figure out measurement, is that most event people are not data analysts. And so the problem is we're scared of data. And I totally get that. So what I'm always trying to do is simplify, make it easy to digest. And even when we report on event impact to a stakeholder, they also need it to be digestible. So yes, it'll help her to protect your budget and grow your program, but it's also, what are the metrics that actually matter? And that's what we're going to talk about in some of the fundamentals here, as this click, I hope, works. Yes. So the first one is one that I think is relevant to what Rob was just saying, which is performance data. How is the event performing as it happens? So if you're doing like a multi-day event, for example, and you were to say, like, let's look at this trade show floor, and we're tracking how people are moving through this space, and you realize through that data tracking, man, that back left corner is dead, while this area is super busy. Look at that at the end of the day. What do we need to change in order to even out the flow of human traffic through this environment to make sure that all of the exhibitors are getting the traffic that they need? So that's looking at how do you take data and evaluate the experience as it's happening so that you can make optimization decisions real time. That's a powerful use of data. And I think that's important for us to consider. It doesn't work for a half-an-hour webinar, but anytime you have an extended period in which you can analyze data and make optimization decisions, use it. How are we changing what people think? Pretty straightforward. When I do a survey on brand perception changes, I will ask people, rate your level of agreement with this statement. This brand is approachable. This brand is a thought leader. If I can do that before and after, registration question, post-event survey, I can show I've moved the needle on brand. And I believe, as I think all of us do, events are brand experiences, and it is part of our role to evolve people's perception of the brand to a more positive result. Behaviors. This one is very interesting because we do want to impact behavioral change, and we need to define at the beginning of the event planning cycle, what do we want people to do? What is the behavior that we want people to exhibit as a result of this event? And then you analyze whether or not they will exhibit that behavior. And the reason I'm very careful about my words is you see two things here, anticipated and actual behavioral change. I believe event people are in the business of anticipated. We can understand by asking people, what do you expect to do as a result of this? I expect to buy more. I expect to remain a customer. I expect to tell my colleagues about this brand or this product. That's an anticipated behavior. And most of us who work in events, our job generally ends at the conclusion of the event. And so that's why I'm always careful about looking at actual behavioral change. However, if it's an internal event, for example, with employees, and you say, we want people to exhibit a new skill or do sales in a new way, you can track that actual behavioral change over time. It's just a little bit tricky when you don't have access to what people do in the long term after an event. So I'm careful never to use ROI. I know you've got that in your upcoming slides, because ROI is a return on investment. A sale that comes from an event could happen months later. It could happen a year later. And the attribution of that sale to the event is not credible. But what is credible is someone saying, I expect to buy more from this company as a result. And so I think we're in the business of delivering qualified opportunities back to the business rather than necessarily closing deals, although there are some events I know where people are signing contracts and buying stuff right on the show floor. The attendee experience. The number one question the EMMC recommends to people is asking about the value for their time. Was this event a good use of your time? The reason I love that question is because everyone perceives value through their own personal lens. I got a new idea for my business. I learned a new professional skill. I saw a supplier that I want to reach out to afterwards. I was entertained. Whatever your value equation is, we think that's important to measure and ask people about value for time because nobody wants to waste their time. This is, for me, the new one that's come up over the past couple of years and is also critical to measure, and we're going to get into it more later in the presentation. This is social value. Measuring the things that we care about. They're not directly connected to business impact, but they're things that we care about. So hold on that. I'm going to do a deeper dive on that towards the end of this presentation. Back to you, buddy.
Thank you. So, taking those top 4 points there, how can you use technology to capture all this data and insight on those four key points? Okay. So, when we look at event technology for the actually on-site experience, we break down the data in terms of two pools. Okay. So one which is, as Dax said, looking at tracking their behaviour about, when they arrived at the event, how they engage with the app for the event and all those metrics that are captured in that, how the sponsors are engaging on the lead capture tool, how many appointments are being made if you're using appointment capabilities, and this whole concept of active and passive tracking around your event. So the idea of active meaning where you sort of check into a zone or a breakout session. Passive is where there are technologies like the Smart Badge by Bizzabo, or the on-arrival system, which is the NFC technology that Cvent offer. There are other technologies out there that do this sort of passive tracking bit, but this is all about actually how are we capturing our attendee behaviour on site. But then on the belief side, there are tools out there, these like Slido and Vvox, and we've got Pete here with his Vvox jumper in, sat in the room. Put your hand up, Pete. But so my background's always been around these sort of audience engagement technologies, but how you drive two-way dialogue between presenter and audience, and how you can capture more of this feedback. And these have like live polling and question capability, but they also have built-in survey capability as well. And I think that belief element is really thinking about how you structure your questions, surveys, polls, whatever, in a way that supports your event content, but actually gives you some of these predictive impact metrics that you can capture on these tools. Okay. And then this is the on-site, and then obviously it works back. So you've got your pre-event. You've got to get people to the event, right? So you obviously market that event through these tools, and then you've got your event registration platform to capture that information. And at this point here, it's also worth capturing more data on your event participants. Demographic information, firmographic information, all of this data that you can capture at the outset, which will inform the best bit is the event impact. So shameless plug. We at Event Footprints, we take all of the data through the platforms that you're using. We can support these ones for you, but we are technology agnostic, so if you are using other providers, then we can build all this data that's captured in these BI tools, business intelligence tools, to measure these impacts of these event activations. To give you an example, this is an example that I'm going to show you now of a sales and marketing event, okay? But we can build these reports across any type of KPIs or measurement that your business wants to measure, okay? So it's very much, it's a B2B hosted event, right? So the whole idea, it's a sales and marketing event. The whole idea is to generate more business. So we look at these are just examples, right? So the whole idea is that pre-event measurement. So let's say we've got 6 emails, and this is the email open rate. This is all the data that's captured on your marketing team look at on a daily basis around email optimization, etc. And we can look at the registration by different job roles and industries. But what's quite important here is actually, if you can't see, but if you look up here, what we're taking here is the event data and linking it in with an organisation's CRM data, like business opportunity data, and then saying actually the event is influencing £4.1 million worth of business. Because of our 1,400 people that have registered, that's the total amount of customer value that's come into that event. And actually this is the amount of open opportunities that we've got with prospects. So we can loosely say that our event is influencing £9 million worth of business opportunity, even before they've gone on site. And then you can have a look at, well, what's the makeup of that audience in your CRM, prospects, marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads, etc. So moving on to the event itself, okay, so now what we're looking at is taking that event data and then looking at not only how much is the event still influencing in its entirety, but actually going down into these sessions and looking at how much is each individual session influencing in terms of a bit of business for us, okay? A little bit of a disconnect here, for example, in session 1, it's actually influencing the highest amount of business, but it's got the lowest feedback rating, so we've got a bit of a disconnect there, right? So we've got something we need to think about in terms of the content for that session. So that's and then obviously you can then do these filters by these different demographics. So I said at registration, you might capture all this information at the point of registration, and you might do some cross-analysis between looking at how these different subsets of your attendees are interacting with your event as well. And then finally, this is where it gets really interesting, is looking at actually how the event is influencing business over time, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But this is quite cool. So this is like looking at what is the makeup of our marketing, and our sales and marketing funnel at point of registration. So that's fixed. And actually, over time, we might want to look at how people have tracked through the funnel and how they've moved from being a prospect, marketing qualified leads, and ultimately a customer. So you can look at this data 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the line and look at how the event has influenced that shift in that sales and marketing component. On the right-hand side, you can then see how many new opportunities were created and how many for our existing customers or prospects, and how many opportunities have progressed through the sales and marketing funnel. We've purposely called this event influence, right? So what this is saying is the event is influencing some of this business growth. Now, what you can do to take it to the next level is there's other factors at play here that might influence some business happening, and therefore you can then do some more complex calculations on this reporting to say, looking at event attribution. So what percentage of that deal is assigned to the event over time? Okay.
I have no idea how to do that.
I don't think many people do. And it's a very much, again, every company is different, right? So a lot of marketing teams and sales team will have like a DevOps team that they'll look at this sort of strategic data and work out attribution over time. But
I mean, I think ideally, if you have a good relationship with your sales organization, when the customer is moving through this funnel or they're making a purchase, you are asking them to talk with the customer about what impacted your purchase. And if you can from that say the event was a part of that mix of touch points, then fantastic.
And when we launched the business, we actually launched this around the time of Confex earlier this year. And I was talking to somebody, a supplier, and I was saying to them, this is what we're doing. And actually, if we can prove this business impact of these events that we're putting on, that we spend a lot of money on, then actually it's just going to be a good thing for our industry, right? Because we can prove that it's generated this amount of revenue, etc. It opens up a bigger conversation to be able to do more creative, bigger, better things for our attendees. And this is, again, just to point out, this is very much centered around a growth event, like a sales and marketing event. If your primary goal is more of a employee engagement, where you're looking at connections made at the event, or understanding, learning, or communication, then we can pull all that data in here as well. All these are very filterable. So we are on the stand on the Meet the Experts, and we can show you some of this data and how you can drill down into these different subsets of the data set. But the final point that I think Dax raised is really important, is this whole concept of social value.
Oh, thank you. So this is something that we've kind of always known, but I think is becoming clearer now at the role of data in tracking social value. So what is a social value? A social value is something that we believe is the right thing to do, and we believe is good for the business, but isn't necessarily directly attributed to business impact. The two most obvious are sustainability and diversity, equity, and inclusion. In sustainability, you have tools like Trace by Isla, and they're here at this event. In the back, waving their hands. I'm a fan of this tool for tracking sustainability, carbon footprint, and other things that you want to track. And there are others, so I'm not necessarily just promoting what they have to offer, but I do think it's important. We believe events should be sustainable, or more sustainable than they ever have been. We don't know, unless we track data against that goal, that we are having the impact that we're going for. We believe, or I believe, that a more sustainable event, if the audience is aware of it, can enhance business impact, but there's no proof of that. We do it because it's the right thing to do and it's aligned to our values, which makes it, for me, a social value metric versus a business value metric. I still think it's totally worth investing in and tracking data against. The other one is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So as of today, I haven't seen any measurement of DEI at events. However, I am super excited to say that we at the EMMC are about to launch industry-first guidance on how to measure diversity, equity, and inclusion goals for events. Because again, it's one of those things where we believe, most of us, that events should deliver great experiences of equitable value to all of our attendees. Why would we invite people to the event and then not allow them a good time or to get value out of it? So if we believe that, we need to track data to understand, are we delivering equitable value to all participants? Are we reaching our diversity goals when it comes to our audience, our speakers, our staff? Are we making people feel included and welcomed? And all of those things are measurable. However, until now, I haven't seen anything, and I'm really excited again to promote, because this is free of charge. I'm not selling anything. This is coming in weeks, this industry guidance on how to measure DEI for events.
Cool. And yeah, website there, sign up. It's a brilliant organisation to be involved with. Lots of thought leadership content, probably written by Dax himself on the website.
Some of it.
Loads of great resources as well. And they do monthly meetup.
Monthly meetups where any member can bring any measurement, conversation, question, topic that they want to chat about with their peers. And you're just welcome to come to this forum and we have a chat. Yeah, it's good.
Cool. Time for questions.
Awesome. Got loads of questions coming in. The top voted question is, how do you get more people to engage or complete surveys, as it's often low numbers, which weakens the credibility of the insight?
Yes, I can take a pass at this. It is tricky, and I think what I tried to go for is like a 30% completion rate of surveys. So here are some tricks and tips and tricks to do that. You mentioned earlier engagement tools like Slido. I like to do, in the moment, quick question pulse checks on how things are going. So for example, in this session, I would have something appear on your mobile app to say, rate this quality of the session 1 to 5 stars. You're right here, you've just finished the session. As the speaker, I can say to you, please give us your rating. Maybe there's an open box for feedback if you have any additional feedback. But that simple 1 to 5 star, almost like movie rating style question, in the moment, you've just had the session, is more likely to get completed than if you ask people, this is the worst practice, tell us about the session you went to 2 days ago. You know, tell us about that one session. It's gone. I mean, I may remember one thing, but I can't give you that quick check. From a survey, post-event survey standpoint, send it out within an hour of event completion. Don't include any other calls to action except for, please give us your feedback. It's important for us to hear from you. Because if you mix in many different messages in that email, it is not effective. You can do incentives. They can be helpful. You get access to win a download or win an Amazon gift card or whatever it might be. That can be useful. And then the last thing I would suggest for a show like this is if you have a large stand, you can be doing interview-based surveys of people who are exiting your stand. So you have a brand ambassador who's asking people questions about their experience as they exit. That is a very effective way to get people to give you their input because it's a human touch model. And so I find that is also very effective. Do you have anything to add?
No, the only thing I was going to say was many of you are using sort of live polling technologies like those engagement software that we talked about. You know, one of the concepts that we've used before is actually to ask a survey question as a live poll. So while people are still in the room, capture that feedback straight away, because a lot of the tools you can switch the data bars off. So you can capture the data but not show it. So that's another good sort of tip of being able to collect a lot of data. You wouldn't want to use it for 5 or 6 survey questions, but if there's 1 or 2 killer questions that they're happy to stay in the back of the room for to capture that data, then that's always worth having a look at.
Cool. And just a reminder, it's pigeonhole.at and the code ETL2023 if you want to upvote any of these questions or add your own. The next question, I think it was for the data visualization that you were showing, Rob. Can this data be exported? What formats? PDF or PowerPoint? Can it also be white labeled?
All of the above. So the Tableau, we typically use Tableau, which is a Salesforce product. It's a data visualization tool, or Power BI. Some of the organizations might use Power BI. We can build it on our instance for you. We can build it on our instance and put it over to your instance if your organization has got a license. You can export all this stuff into PowerPoint, PDFs, share it around the business. But with these tools, there's kind of like a viewer license capability, so you can send it out to all the stakeholders, and they can view it. And by viewing it in the platform, they've got the full capability of being able to filter and slice and dice the data however they want to. So lots of flexibility.
Cool. And so next question, any advice on how to capture data on an exhibition stand? Badge scanning delegates doesn't always allow us to communicate and gain feedback in real time.
Yeah, I can start with this. So the interview-based model is one that I mentioned, which is asking people about their experience as they leave. Ideally, not by an employee of the company, because we sort of naturally skew the data in a positive way without even trying, because we work for the company. Behavioral tracking of people's movement through an environment is very interesting. There are devices here, there are some vendors here, where they can use beacons to track people's mobile phone movement through the space. And so you can understand what people are doing and how long they're spending. Quick note about how long people are spending. There is no evidence to support that longer is better. So forget dwell time. However, if you have a stand, it is useful to try to have a time spent goal. Meaning if you're showing demos, product demos, how long do you want people to spend in that demo? Because you want to get as many people through that demo as possible. So if it's 5 minutes, great. If people are spending half an hour in that demo, that's a problem because you're impacting your throughput numbers, your goals. So think about your time spent goal. Anything to add?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, there are products out there as well, sort of this universal lead capture solutions that on the trade show stands, you can sort of gamify the experience. And so you're not necessarily having a sales rep come up to you and scan the details, but actually walk around the activation and scan your details to collect content or participate in a game at the event, and obviously that.
You should be able to access lead scan or scan data real time. So depending on the software or the application that the show is providing, or if you have your own, you should be able to look at that as it's happening, which should give you a snapshot of real-time data capture.
So whoever asked that question, they had a follow-up comment. Just want to make sure that question was answered. Is there any want to take the mic, make a comment? Next question, from Charlotte. What is a good and GDPR compliant way to capture data that you don't already have?
Brilliant question. A lot of it, privacy is obviously very, very important. So when you're using these technologies, what's really, really important is you give the attendees an opportunity to opt out. Okay, so that might be at point of registration, it might be within the app. That actually, I don't want my data being shared at this event. So there is multiple points through the technology journey where people can opt out. The first and foremost is when you're launching your event and at the event registration phase, is making sure that you're building in some sort of caveat around how your people's data is going to be used and shared at the event. So you're covered. Even if you're not going to use these technologies at the event, just make sure it's in there at registration so you've got that fallback if you decide to implement them.
Could be anyone's stage, not necessarily ours.
Is that our time to finish?
Do you have an API for custom software to send you data?
Another good question. So, short answer, not at the moment. So we're a service organisation, so we're a group of passionate individuals about event tech design and data capture. A lot of the tools that we use are from partners, so we partner with Cvent and Bizzabo, but the reporting stuff is just done in Tableau or Power BI. So yeah, it's we can, on those reports, we can build static reports, which means that it's just taking a snapshot of event data from multiple different platforms based on an export-import type scenario, or like the ones I showed there, if you're taking live sales feeds from an organisation's business systems, then we can obviously do that, and we can part build the reports to sort of hand over to an organisation's data and insights team as well. So it's very much service-led as opposed to software-led.
I think this is more a comment which we could close on. It's such a good point, really, the value of business at an event that might already be in the pipeline. We can get way too focused on new business rather than how events can support all stages of the sales process.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Sorry, one note, which is, I had a client once who was running an exhibit program, and her objective was new customer acquisition. That was her only objective. An existing customer would come to the stand, and it was a handshake and a see you later. And those people who were spending millions with that company were like, what is this? Why am I not getting treated well? Because when you set goals and objectives, people's behavior follows. So that is an important comment to think about the whole funnel, all of the audiences, and what are you trying to accomplish with those audiences to make sure that that kind of bad behavior doesn't happen.
Awesome. I think that's all we've got time for. That was brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.